Jamie here. Jamie here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Thursday, April 24th, 8:58 a.m. on this fine morning. Talk quick about the market, some names I'm looking at. Go from there. S&P futures kind of flat, right? They were red overnight. S&P was down almost 1%. And then we've bounced off the lows and was actually in the green at about 7 a.m. And then we've been chopping around here, green again at 8:30 a.m. Yeah, it's I put on the watch list yesterday morning, probably chopped, right? And when I say chopped, typically back in December, November, the chop was in a 0.2% range. Yesterday's chop was a 2% trading range. So we had a 2% trading range yesterday, but that's because we gapped higher. So it seemed like a much bigger reversal. It was a $10 reversal on the SPY from the highs. But outside of any catalysts today, there's not much in the way of news. No, I mean, there's Fed speak. Um, but we have just Google Intel earnings after the close, and then just headlines, right? That's this market's just an exhausting, uh, just uh, just nonstop headlines being thrown at the market. Uh, um, I said tariff on, tariff off. That's just what it feels like. But anyway, so President Trump came out on Tuesday afternoon after the close and spiked the market, said he had no intention of firing Powell, kind of ratcheted down his hard stance on China, saying he's not looking to play hardball. Then yesterday, there's just more talk, right? Oh, we've been in talks with China. Tariffs going to come down and all that fun stuff. And then overnight, China pretty much refutes that there's been any conversation with the U.S. in regards to tariffs, right? So someone's lying. And so futures hit lows overnight, and then we've since bounced. You just hope, and I put this on to watch this morning. It's like the longer this goes, the longer we've had these headlines, the longer we say we're talking, and with no deals, the more these comments are just going to fall on deaf ears. And when they start to fall on deaf ears, the market's just gonna melt lower. I'm hoping that's not the scenario, right? For now, some strong bounces, right, back to back green sessions. The S&P is up nearly 1.7% on a week. That's after only Monday's 2 o'clock. We were down 3% on the S&P. So we'll take that, and then hopefully we can build off that. Find some consolidation, some tradable ranges. We hopefully we hold 530 here on a SPY today, and then maybe we can set up nice into the weekend and maybe get some positive headlines, right? And then as we start to get really into earnings season, and you already hear the reports, right? I mean, we knew this was coming, but the uncertainty, how many times tariffs are mentioned in earnings calls now, I think it's like 95% of companies reporting have mentioned tariffs in the earnings. I mean, any good company should be mentioning tariffs right now, unless you have zero possible impact from it, right? And then some companies, I think it's like 50 or 60% are mentioning recession. I mean, economic data remains strong. With the home sales came in, yes, new home sales came in yesterday, way above expectations. I keep saying this too. I think there's all this pent up, I wouldn't call pent up, all this artificially inflated consumption because of tariffs coming is going to hit the numbers for April when we start getting the numbers in May. So you have to think the data is going to be good short term. It's just a matter of this stuff's got to get figured out. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time. So, anyway, I put on a watch list. 547, 530 continues to be that range. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see some more swings. Yesterday, again, it's like you can't rule out that the market's going to go red to green, even though it was up nearly 3%. Right? You just can't rule it out. And the market start to hit highs at 10 o'clock, hit lows at 12 o'clock, and then thankfully found a bid, and we were able to chop around for the rest of the day. It's like we're a headline away from up 2% or down 2%, right? And that, unfortunately, when we have this type of environment, just makes sense. Keep things small, be open to both sides. Don't get feared into this market Armageddon. I mean, it'll happen, right? If the tariffs stay and everything stays the course as it is, or even escalates, that, I mean, it's going to be bad. You have all these people trying to figure out what it all means, but to me, like once you start seeing like empty shelves, right? You go and get your normal routine, and there's prices are up 50% or something's, then you'll have some panic, and then all that stuff it'll just be a snowball. I don't think it's there yet. So, but got to keep it in the back of your head. But anyway, so that's kind of the overall market. I remain, I'm more apt to probably get spec lotto calls than to try and play for downside, but I'm certainly open to downside. If it does happen, like 5:30 on the SPY breaks today, I'll probably get some SQQ calls into tomorrow just because. Some other things to note, I was mentioning yesterday, the amount of stocks trading over their 200-day moving average on the SPY didn't really tick up much yesterday, despite the rally. So that's a little concerning. But on the other flip side, the U.S. dollar and seems to have stabilized a little bit, and yields have ticked down. So Those stories have kind of fizzled a little bit, and who knows what the next story is going to be in regards to the black swan event. All right, so that's kind of overall market. So after the close today, we get Google and Intel. I had those Reddit strikes, the Reddit calls at the start of the week. It was trading at $90 when I got the calls, or 91 and change. And then on the rant Tuesday morning, I said, well, 115, which was the 200-day moving average. I didn't think it would come on Wednesday. And it came very close yesterday, all the way up to 113.55. I closed more of the strikes out for 1,300%, and then I just held the rest. And I actually had a limit for $10 for the last couple. It got up to 9, didn't fill, and then I just held them because I mean, call me crazy. My risk is already defined, right? I already have lots of profits on it, so I'm just going to hold because I think Google's report a decent quarter. And if you take a look at a name that's probably ready to just rocket from here, I think Reddit will be a nice sympathy trade. So pending any crazy shenanigans this afternoon, I'll just hold those as a lotto. The other option would be getting some further out lotto strikes and closing out the 105s. That's a possibility. So depending on what happens here today. And then RH, another name, frustrating that the option market didn't open to like 937, but took some of the calls out when it broke over 190 for 400%. It got up to 194, almost in the money. Crazy. It was like a 20 something dollar move. Closed more out for 800%. And then I held the last couple. Of course, in hindsight, should I've sold them all? Possibly. But similar to some of these other names, I think it's just a headline away from going to 210, 215. And some of the headlines, I think, and I keep saying with the RH, it's probably going to happen when I'm not in the calls, but CEO is going to announce a buyback, or there's going to be some other catalyst. Obviously, a deal with Vietnam would send Wayfair and RH soaring. So I'll continue to hold those, and I might, and I've been playing RH for some spec lottos. Did it Friday. I might do it again. Possibly add some before the end of the day today, depending if the market holds its ground for some spec lottos into tomorrow. So that's RH. Oh, so Tesla. You know it. I posted almost jokingly when they reported earnings after the close on Tuesday that it would drive the bears and the perma bears nuts if it finished in the green, right? Everybody knew it was going to be a horrible earnings report, and it was, right? Gross margin or margin down 70%, revenue down double digits, and that trend's probably going to continue. Uh, but you saw it green; it was like max negative sentiment on the name. That's kind of how it was in October when it did that rally from the 200s. I mean, it went all the way up to 500. Some of that was the election after the earnings, but I thought maybe there'd be some more FOMO. People, had some, post-traumatic stress disorder, missing the last one in October, said, oh, here we go again with Tesla. So I got some of the spec 285s. It got all the way up to 259, and then it seemed like it hit a wall, was chopping around. I didn't want to lose the profits, so I closed them out for a small gain. I might revisit here today, especially if it gains some Momo, maybe over 255. I'm sitting here just slightly in the green here. So that's Tesla. GameStop laid an egg yesterday, down over 2%. It's slightly in the red here this morning. It's just a matter of time before there's some update in regards to their Bitcoin purchase, if they made it. You have to assume they did already. If you take a look, it was just it's like Ryan Cohen was just waiting. He's not someone who just waits around. It's like once they announced the Bitcoin treasury, they did the offering, right? So you have to think they did the purchase. He's not waiting around. So I think once that happens, it's over $30. Still looking to close out the May strikes. I'll continue to hold the later dated ones. I might look for July's too. First Solar, disappointing. Was actually trading nicely at the open, then gave it all back. I think the end phase earnings kind of would be somewhat of the culprit. Closed out 3%. 50-day moving average right there is 136. So difficult there. I mean, if it gets over 135 here today, I might look for some spec lottos into tomorrow. They have earnings next week, so tough one to trade. And then some other names. Like I keep saying, small becomes big, and then also keeping things small in this environment. So if I do get any trades, they'll probably be weekly spec lottos expiring tomorrow. Wayfair, 30.99 was the big area. It came up to that yesterday and then gave it back. So that I'll be watching if it breaks over $30. ServiceNow had a great monster earnings report. And this is one that got destroyed at the start of the year when it reported its fourth quarter numbers. You take a look, and it's had, I think it was October of last year, or a couple times. I think not obviously not in February or in January, but 2 quarters previous to that, it opened and then it rallied $60 after the open. Not saying it's going to rally up to 940 here today, but it looks like maybe a nice spec lotto trade for 910, 920. So don't be surprised if I find a decent risk reward setup. I add some spec lottos on ServiceNow. And then Netflix. And Netflix is in the red here, or was lower. It was all the way down to 1036 when I started to write this, but it's down here at 1045. It closed at 1049. It's above its upper Bollinger Band. Upper Bollinger Band is 1042, but I think it might have an overshoot into the weekend. So, especially if premiums come down, the 1100s look interesting. So, don't be surprised if I had some strikes there. GPCR, nice day yesterday. The Junes or the July 35 strikes, the spreads have come down. I think it's 75 on the ask. Don't be surprised if I add some strikes there. VKTX reported earnings after the close yesterday. No big major updates like it's had in the past, but maybe it puts some bids in some of these GLP-1 names. And then the biotech names, right? I keep looking. At some point, these going to start to take off, and hopefully they start to outperform. If they do, I'll be looking maybe some of the, the ones I've been looking to, VRTXs, the Gileads, maybe even Regeneron or Biogen. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.